A top assassin is suddenly forced into a battle against an entire army, an entire company of soldiers fully equipped with heavy weapons, artillery units, and even 3 armed helicopters providing air support. Do you think he can survive this? It all started not long ago. A group of toy soldiers witnessed their owner being murdered by the assassin. The very next day, the killer received a mysterious package. He carefully opened it. Inside was an entire company of toy soldiers. He picked one up and inspected it closely. No traps. Nothing unusual. Satisfied, he set it down. But just as he walked into the kitchen, a loud crash echoed behind him. The box on the table had suddenly fallen to the floor. Certain that no one else was in the house, he went back to check, but something strange had happened. The toy soldiers were gone. For a moment, the assassin thought he was losing his mind. Then the kitchen light suddenly went out. He hurried to investigate, and suddenly slipped. Looking down, he pulled something off his shoe. It was a toy rifle. What was going on? He crouched down to look under the cabinets. Suddenly, gunfire erupted. A barrage of bullets forced him back into the corner. Impacts struck all around him. Completely stunned, he leaned out to look again, and another hail of gunfire tore past him. Then heavy weapons joined the fight. A rocket slammed into his knee, sending him crashing to the ground. Gritting through the pain, he rolled behind the stairs to catch his breath. He didn't know who the enemy was, but he knew one thing: he couldn't just sit there and die. Fighting through the gunfire, he forced his way into the bathroom. Using a mirror, he carefully peeked outside, and what he saw made no sense at all. Before he could react, another rocket exploded, shattering the mirror. Now he was furious. He returned to the room, pulled out his Desert Eagle, and started firing back. But the enemy fire was overwhelming. The rockets alone could have killed him instantly. He needed another strategy: breaking through the enemy line. He rushed into the kitchen bar area. There he kept a secret weapon. Looking at the Thompson in his hands, a twisted smile spread across his face. Then he stood up and unleashed a storm of bullets into the sofa. One magazine wasn't enough. He reloaded and fired again. Finally, when everything fell silent, he walked over and flipped the sofa over and froze. Underneath was an entire squad of toy soldiers. The survivors began retreating immediately. One soldier spotted him and raised his weapon, but the assassin simply crushed him underfoot. Another tried to run. He didn't make it far. The remaining soldiers regrouped and prepared to attack. A rocket trooper raised his launcher. 2 shots. The assassin dropped him instantly. His overwhelming firepower suppressed the entire unit. But then, 3 armed helicopters powered up. If toy soldiers could come to life, could you defeat them? Even a top assassin was nearly helpless now. The helicopters surrounded him and immediately fired missiles. Luckily, his reflexes were fast, or he would have been killed instantly. The helicopters swooped low, their spinning blades slicing across his face. Another one cut into his wrist. Each helicopter was fully armed, machine gunners, pilots, and co-pilots. As soldiers advanced from the front, the assassin took aim and shot one helicopter down, but that only enraged the other 2. Missiles rained down relentlessly. Dodging desperately, he rushed back into the bathroom to treat his wounds. Moments later, the toy soldiers launched a full assault. One helicopter charged inside first, but before it could stabilize, the assassin grabbed a towel, wrapped it around the aircraft, and slammed it to the ground, stomping it repeatedly. Then the second helicopter rushed in to assist. He pulled out his pistol and fired, forcing it to retreat, just as he prepared to chase them. He heard movement behind him. The first helicopter was still functioning. Trying to recover, the assassin picked up the towel, dumped everything inside into the toilet, and flushed. Then he switched on a hairdryer and dropped it in. A flash of sparks, and everything went silent. A moment later, a piece of paper slid under the door. He picked it up. It was a letter of surrender, asking a top assassin to surrender to toys. He almost laughed. He grabbed a pen, wrote a reply, and quietly slid it back under the door. He peeked through a hole in the door to see what they were doing, and was completely stunned. A cannon was already aimed straight at him. With a single wave of the commander's hand, dozens of shells blasted into the room at once. The firepower was overwhelming. The assassin scrambled out the window to escape, but when the soldiers couldn't find him, they immediately dispatched a helicopter to hunt him down. Pinned on the balcony, he didn't dare move, forced to watch as machine gun fire ripped past him. Seizing a brief opening, he raised his pistol and shot the helicopter down. One desperate soldier chose to crash his aircraft, in a final attempt to take the assassin with him. But his view was blocked by flames. and the aircraft ultimately crashed behind the assassin instead. Ignoring his fallen weapon, the assassin crawled back inside the building, finally reaching the balcony again. He peered through a gap and saw the toy soldiers still aiming at the bathroom. As he turned his head, he spotted a fire extinguisher nearby, and a small rubber duck on the table. He frowned, already forming a plan. The rubber duck distracted the soldiers' attention, and the assassin quietly circled behind the artillery unit. He discharged the fire extinguisher, filling the air with white smoke and blinding their vision, but an armored unit quickly reacted and opened fire with a machine gun. The assassin was pinned down, unable to lift his head. The artillery began firing again. He couldn't hesitate any longer. Grabbing a makeshift flamethrower, he unleashed a stream of fire at the armored unit, and finally destroyed it. The assassin threw his head back and roared in triumph. 3 reinforcements rushed in and opened fire, but their weapons were too weak. Moments later, they were burned down by the assassin's counterattack. With his revenge finally satisfied, he grabbed a kitchen knife and began smashing the remaining toy soldiers in fury. At last, the fire extinguisher ran empty, for artillery soldiers cautiously scanned the area, but the assassin had already slipped behind them. He dropped a box over them, trapping them completely. In the end, the toy soldiers were no match for the assassin. Looking over their roster, he began calculating the results of the battle. It seemed he had wiped out the entire company. He opened the oven, threw the surviving toys inside, and turned it on, finally relaxing.